Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Love Against the Throne. Episode 15. Chapter 72. Jeremy's POV. It has been a long month out here alone in no man's land. For the first week, I more or less lived on the street until my father hooked me up with an old friend of his who gave me a place to stay and a security job. I spent most of my time around humans. But it was all I had. I had met a girl that was good at blowjobs and being with me sometimes. I am pretty sure she is a witch, but neither of us talks to the other. We are just a quick screw. Once a week my father comes to visit. I am still angry with him over what happened with Esther, but he tries to make up for it. He tells me how well my son is doing. Not that I haven't heard that he is now calling the king daddy. That angers me. He is my son. I was there the day he was born, not the king. I still had it in my head that Gemma was in love with me. She only stayed with the king because of the mate bond. Her head was muddled by the goddess's matchmaking. It wasn't true love. Someday she would come to and we would be together. For now, I just had to wait. Jeremy, baby, what are you thinking about? My bed warmer asked. She was lying beside me on the bed. Her red hair spread out on the pillow as her green eyes gazed into mine. I shrugged. Don't worry about it, Anne, I mumbled to her. Are you thinking about the Queen again? She asked. Because you were calling her name while you slammed into me again. I guess I was. But then I always think about her. She ran her soft hand down my cheek. It's a travesty that she doesn't share your affections. I wish I could help you win her, but I am just a beginner in the craft. As I said, don't worry about it. I sighed and got out of bed. It was time for work. I hated the job. It was mundane and boring. Most of the time I sat in a tiny booth outside the gates making sure no unauthorized humans entered. Sometimes I had to walk around the perimeter to make sure no one was breaking in. I walked into the small bathroom and took a short shower before dressing in my uniform. Anne was sitting on the edge of the bed. Her red hair hanging down her pale body. You are free to stay, I mumbled to her as I walked out of the bedroom. She followed me into the kitchen as I was preparing the coffee. Her hand massaged my shoulders. I relished the contact. I better be getting home. My mother worries if I am out all night. Whatever. I turned to her and kissed her soft red lips. I squeezed her. Thanks for the blow. She smiled. Anytime. I smacked her as she walked out of the kitchen. I poured black coffee into my canister. Anne remembers to lock the door when you leave, I called out to her before walking out of the apartment. I walked the short mile to work. My coworker was out in front smoking a cigarette as I approached. Evening, Larry, I said to him. He nodded and took a puff of his cigarette. He walked into the tiny booth and grabbed his lunch bag and laptop. All yours, Jeremy. He mumbled before walking towards his car. I snorted and sat on the stool in the booth. I clocked into the computer and leaned against the wall with my legs propped up and stared into the dark. It was 8 hours of nothing. Even my thoughts were silent as my wolf Rex had stopped talking to me when I rejected Esther. After an hour's nap, I stood up and decided to take a walk around the perimeter. I whistled as I walked around the fence, Nothing new. Just the same old boring walk. A black van pulled up alongside me and 3 smelly men jumped out. I managed to punch one of them but was grabbed by the other 2. Something hit the back of my head and everything went black. There was laughter as I came to. My vision was blurry as I opened my eyes. My sense of smell took in the stench of decay and garbage. My hands were bound together and I was laying on my side. I tried sitting up but got dizzy and a pair of strong hands held me down. "He's waking up. Tell the boss," came the deep voice of the bastard holding me down. I saw shiny black shoes approaching me and I was yanked to a sitting position. I looked up to a familiar face. Lord Felix. He squatted down and looked me over. "You failed me, Mr. Warner. Those pups are still alive and Gemma is still with my cousin." He snapped his fingers and I groaned as a fist connected with the side of my head. I snarled at the man standing beside me who had struck me. "I am sorry." Felix tsked as he sat on a chair. "I should just have my men here rip you apart for your failings. But I am not going to do that. No, I am still going to use you." "How? I hear you are still in contact with your father, Beta Mark of Zephyr Moon." I nodded. "Yeah. He comes to visit me sometimes." "Isn't that sweet?" Lord Felix snorted. "Anyways, I need you to help me kidnap your son. Or should I say the king's son?" I growled and glared at him. "He is still my son." Felix laughed. "Oh right. That child seems to have forgotten. He calls my cousin daddy." "What do you need me to do?" I said through gritted teeth. "Talk your father into bringing the pup with him for your next visit." I sighed. I did not want Nick to be involved in all of this. "My son won't get hurt." Felix shrugged. "The pup will be fine so long as you do as we say. My father and I are going fishing next weekend. I'll ask him to bring Nick. Gemma allows him and my mother to take Nick for day trips sometimes." "Whatever. I don't give a offense about the details. Just tell me where you go fishing and we'll take care of the rest. If this succeeds you'll have the woman you love in your arms and the kingdom will be mine. My father usually takes me to Arrowhead Lake. It's just over the Zephyr Moon border on the south side." Felix nodded. "I know where you mean." "Okay." He handed me a cell phone. "We'll be in touch." "Of course we will," I said as I was lifted to my feet. "I'll have my men take you back to work now," Felix smirked and stood up. "Don't fail me this time, Mr. Warner." The 3 men took me back to the van and they drove me back to work. As I got out of the van my boss was standing by the booth. He eyed me as I was thrown out of the van. "Where were you, Jeremy?" he asked. I stood up and dusted myself off. "Sorry, boss," I said to him as the van sped away. "I was dealing with something." "I see that. I got calls that there was a breach and couldn't get a hold of you." My boss being human luckily didn't ask more questions. Though being a friend of my father's I suspected he had a clue about werewolf problems. "Do you want me to go check around the place?" I asked him. "Please." My boss stated and opened the gate. I ran around the property and saw nothing amiss. Sighing I walked back to the little booth. "All clear boss." Okay, good. Well, I'll be going now. Bye, I said as he walked away from me. After a long night of work I returned to my one-bedroom apartment and slumped down on the rundown couch I had found behind a dumpster. I needed to call my father and see if he would bring my son along with him for our fishing trip. I worried about Felix's plan. I didn't want Nick involved in my messed-up life, but I still wanted to be with his mother. I picked up my cheap phone and called my dad. "Hey Jeremy," my father answered after a couple of rings. "Hi, Dad. How is it going?" "Oh, you know. How is Mom doing?" I hadn't seen my mother since my sentencing. I had talked to her a couple of times but she seemed to have distanced herself from me. "She is doing well, son," he replied. "Hey, I wanted to ask you something about our fishing trip on Saturday." There was a pause. "What about it?" "I was wondering if you could bring Nick. I miss my boy. I just really want to see him." My father sighed. "I don't know about that. The king and queen are very protective of him. Your mother and I are only allowed to take him places close to the palace and with a guard escort." I growled lowly. "Try. Tell them it's the lake we always went to as pups." "You know I can't lie to them, Jeremy. Please, Dad. I really miss my son. It's killing me to not see him. Like I want to slice my skin and bleed out because I miss him so much." "Don't be so dramatic, Jeremy," my father nearly yelled. "I'll see what I can do. I know you miss Nick. But no, he is doing well. I know that, Dad. But I miss him. He may call the king daddy but I am still his father. I'll call you back in a couple of days after I see if Gemma will allow it. I won't mention you being there." I snorted. "That is fine with me. Bye, Dad. Bye, son. Stay out of trouble," he said before hanging up. Days later I was waiting in front of my apartment for my father to pick me up. He had talked Gemma into allowing Nick to come with us on our trip, though he had left out the part of me being there. My father's black pickup truck pulled up and my son was in the back seat strapped into a child seat. I smiled as I hopped in. "Nick." My son smiled at me. "Daddy," he said to me. I looked at my father. "Thanks, Dad." He winked at me as we pulled away from the building. It was going to be an hour-long trip driving to the lake. I had sent a message to Felix's men telling them where we would be and at what time. I was a little nervous about it. When we reached the lake I helped my dad set up our fishing equipment. "I can't wait to catch the fish." "What about you, Nick?" I said as I picked up my son. He giggled. "I want to catch a fishy this big," he said holding out his arms. "You always catch the biggest one," I said as I set him down. I sent another text to Felix's men when my father's back was turned. My father has set up 3 plastic chairs and I sat in one beside him. "It's a nice day for fishing," my father smirked at me. "It sure is," I said as Nick sat in a small chair between us. I looked back towards the parking lot awaiting Felix's men to show up. I sighed nervously as we all stood to cast our lines. My dad helped Nick with his pole. It was an hour of sitting waiting for a bite before I heard twigs snap around us. I looked up to see 5 rogue wolves approaching. My father was on his feet snarling as I pushed Nick behind me. The wolves lunged for my father and me. "Nick, run!" my father shouted at my son. Nick yelped as a wolf lunged at him. I tackled the wolf to the ground. I wished I could shift. Surely Rex would be willing to protect our pup. But there was silence in my head. I looked to see the wolves attacking my father, who was now in wolf form. Blood spilled out of the silver wolf as I was grabbed by strong arms. "Are you Warner?" a deep voice said in my ear. "Yes." "Where is my son?" "We have him in the van. Just come with us and he won't be harmed," the man instructed. My father's wolf fell to the ground as the others stood over him. I wanted to help him as he was bleeding out. "Can you call those guys off of my father?" the man laughed. "That wasn't part of the deal. Now be a good boy and follow me." But I said as my father had shifted back to human form and was lying in a pool of blood beside our fishing poles. I was pulled roughly away. "Come now or I'll kill the pup," the man snarled. With one look at my father's still form, I followed the man to a van parked on the roadway. I heard Nick screaming as he opened the door. My pup leaped into my arms. "Daddy!" he cried as I held him tight. The man pushed me into the van and we drove off. "Where is Papa?" My father was either dead or slowly dying on the ground. But I had to keep my son safe, so I left him there. Guilt clouded me as my son sobbed in my arms. "Papa will be fine," I lied through my teeth. I looked towards the man who had shoved me into the van. "How is this going to work exactly?" "Well, when the queen comes looking for her whelp, we'll ambush her and take her." "Do you honestly think King Cassius will let her come alone?" I asked him. "Oh, we'll set up a distraction for him. Don't you worry." The man grinned evilly. "Just hang tight." Cassius's POV. I was happily dreaming about my future with Gemma and our impending pups. Running in the field chasing our blonde-haired twins and Nick. They giggled as we played tag. I never wanted to leave this place. Then I was pulled out of my dream by Gemma frantically calling my name. I opened my eyes and had my arm around her. She was trying to get out of bed. I sighed and released her. She ran into the bathroom and I heard her vomiting seconds later. Sighing, I rolled out of bed stark from last night's lovemaking. I walked into the bathroom and sat behind her as she threw up. The floor felt cold on my skin. I gently stroked her back. She hadn't been having morning sickness the last few days. I was partly worried as she sat back and I pulled her into my lap. I rested my chin on the top of her head. "Are you okay, love? You haven't been having the sickness for the last few days." "I'm fine, Cass," she mumbled as she snuggled into my chest. The contact on our bare skin sending sparks of ecstasy through our bodies. She took a deep breath. "We have to get ready for work," she said as I released her. I couldn't help but look at her body. Her belly seemed to be getting rounder by the day. I wished we could feel the pups moving, but I could sense their little souls when I was near her. I stood up and walked behind her into the shower. After 20 minutes and washing, we walked out. Silently, we dried off and went into the closet. I stared at my clothes, trying to decide if I was going to be formal or casual today. I glanced at Gemma and she had chosen a black pencil skirt with a purple button-up shirt and a black jacket. Don't forget that Mark is taking Nikki fishing. She reminded me. Nick's paternal grandfather had asked if he could take the pup fishing with him. I was hesitant about allowing Nick to be that far from the palace and without guard protection. But Gemma told me that Mark usually went to a lake close to Zephyr Moon's territory and it was a spot she was familiar with. Mark assured me that Nick would be safe and Gemma trusted him. He is her father's beta and a strong one at that. He had to be to serve alongside Alpha Philip. So I agreed. I remember, I replied to her as I dressed in one of my three-piece suits. Black slacks with a dark purple shirt and a black jacket with a black vest. I put on a purple silk tie and noticed her staring at me as I finished. Does my queen approve? She smirked and walked over to me and messed with my tie. I just love how you look in a suit. I thought I'd match a little with my queen. She giggled and then ran a brush through her hair and put it in a braid. She stood in front of the mirror and I stood behind her and wrapped my arms around her, placing my hands on her belly. Oh, the pups are feisty this morning, I said as I sensed them through my hands. They are my children after all. She snickered. I sighed. Don't I know it? I'm going to go get Nikki ready, she said and I let her go. Okay, love. I sat on the couch and turned on the TV to the morning news. My brain started thinking about my sister. A few days ago when she had been here with her mate she seemed different. Not my bubbly happy little sister but like a robot. I noticed the bruises and the words that the brute said to her. My parents and Gemma had noticed. But I didn't have enough to go on. When my father and I spoke with Casper he made it sound like everything was all right. So we didn't push it. My parents were going to travel to the pack and surprise them and stay a couple of days. I hoped the Alpha wouldn't go too hard on my parents or Ainsley. Bored with the TV I turned it off and went next door to Nick's room. Gemma was helping him dress as he chattered away about fishing. They looked up. Isn't your daddy handsome, Nicky? Gemma asked our son. Nick shrugged. I guess. He giggled as she finished dressing him. He ran over to me and I picked him up. Are you excited about fishing with your grandfather? He nodded. I get to catch fishies this big. He held out his little hands and I laughed. Be careful they don't pull you into the water. I laughed as we reached the elevator. It was just the three of us. I assumed my parents were already on their way to Silver Crescent. I hope that jerk Casper doesn't take it out on Ainsley when your parents show up unannounced, Gemma said as the door opened. He walked into the elevator and rode down in silence. When the door opened I set Nick on the ground and he ran ahead of us. I saw Delta with her mate and son. Nick ran up to his friend Nikolai and the two pups took off like rockets to the dining room. Nicky! Gemma called to him. Oh, Gemma! Relax. I glanced at her. She snorted as we reached the dining room. The two pups were sharing a seat. I'm going fishing with Papa, Nick declared to Nikolai. Everyone stood up and I smiled at the two pups. They both quieted. Good morning everyone. I hope you all slept well. Let's start this day with smiles and pancakes. Let's eat. I sat down and the pups resumed their chattering. The Omegas brought out our pancake breakfast. I watched as Gemma helped Nick with his food while she chatted with Angela, who was helping Nikolai. "You are letting Nick go fishing with his grandfather?" Maria asked us. Gemma nodded. "I trust Mark. He is a strong wolf and they will be close to my old pack." "If you say so." "It's a lake that my dad and Mark used to take us all as pups. It's close to a human town, so not a lot of strange wolves around," Gemma explained. We finished our breakfast. I decided to go to the office to get started while Gemma waited up our front for Beta Mark. I kissed her. "You behave for your papa, Nick," I said to my pup. "Catch the big fishy and bring it home so we can eat fish." Nick gave me a pout. "No eating it. I want to keep it." I laughed. "As a pet?" He nodded. I looked at Gemma, who laughed also. "And what are you going to name your pet fish?" "Al," he replied as Gemma clasped his little hand. I ruffled his hair. "You are a silly pup," I smirked at Gemma before walking away from them. I entered the office and sat at my desk. I turned on the computer and got started. A few minutes later, Deke and Maria walked in, as did Gemma. My Beta and Delta caught me up on everything I needed to know. A few hours later we took a snack break. Gemma was eating more often due to the rapidly growing pups. She munched on some almonds and grapes as we sat on the couch chatting. We had been discussing names for our pups. "I like the name Fiona for the girl," she suggested as she popped a couple of almonds into her mouth. I made a face. "I'm not sure about that one." "How about Layla?" She shrugged. "That's not bad." She smiled at me. "For the boy, his middle name has to be Alexander. It's sort of a tradition," I explained to her. "It's my middle name and my father's, his father, and a few before that." "That's fine with me. I'm just glad your middle name isn't something like Eugene or Clifford." I laughed loudly at that. "I'm glad for that too." Her phone rang from the desk and she stood up and ran over to it. I stole a couple of her grapes and popped them into my mouth. I sat on the couch thinking of other names for our pups. When Gemma started screaming, "What do you mean Nikki is missing?" she shouted into the phone. I wasn't sure who had called, but she became hysterical. I ran over to her. "Gemma." She was babbling into the phone and I took her into my arms. "Calm down, love," I pleaded with her as I sat her on my lap. I took the phone from her as she sobbed into my chest. "Hello? Cassius." It was her father Phil's voice. "What is going on, Phil?" I asked my father-in-law. "My baby is missing. I need to find my baby." Gemma sobbed. Phil took a deep breath. "I am here at the fishing spot and my Beta is dead and my grandson is missing." I growled. "We are coming, Phil. Hold tight. In the meantime, I am sending my best trackers." "Good. I have 2 of mine already on the job." I patted Gemma's back. "Gemma, I need you to focus. We are going to go find our son." I patted my hysterical mate's back. "See you soon, Phil," I said to him before hanging up. I mind-linked my head tracker Flynn Fletcher. "Gemma, I just called my head tracker. He and his men are going to go on ahead and help your father. We will be close behind," I explained to her, which seemed to calm her. I kissed her temple. Nick will be fine. There was a knock on the door. Come in. A tall thin male with brown hair walked in. He bowed before me. Your Majesties. Flynn, my son Nick has been kidnapped. I need you and your men to help track him down, I explained to him. I nudged Gemma. Can you tell Flynn the location? She nodded and gave him the location. Alpha Philip of Zephyr Moon is already there with some of his men. Coordinate with him when you arrive. Yes, Your Majesty. If I may. Can you guys get me some articles of clothing that belong to the pup? It will help us. Gemma, can you go get some of Nick's clothes for Flynn? She stood up and ran out of the office. I sighed and stood up. I mind-linked some of my warriors to get ready to come with. Gemma returned in record time with a bag containing a couple of Nick's shirts. Please find my baby. She mumbled to the tracker. He gave her a faint smile. I will do everything I can, Your Majesty. He bowed to her. Okay, get going, Flynn. The tracker nodded and left the office. I put my arm around Gemma and lead her out of the office. Deke and Maria met us at the front of the palace as my warriors were waiting outside a couple of SUVs. Okay Maria, you stay behind. Deke, you come with us. I then opened the door to one of the SUVs and put Gemma in it. I looked at the warriors. Let's head out, I ordered them and then climbed into the SUV. Gemma was curled up and sobbing again as the vehicles got underway. I pulled her into my arms. Love, I know you are worried about Nick. But please stay strong. You have to think about the ones in your belly. The stress isn't good for them. She sniffled. I know. I just am so scared for Nicky. She leaned into my chest. We arrived at the lake in record time. Gemma was out the door before the vehicle had come to a complete stop. Gemma. I called after her as my warriors filed out behind me. She stopped when she reached her father. Her brother was standing beside Phil. Phil pulled his daughter into a hug and he looked stressed. I saw a sheet covering a body and I assumed it was Mark's. I sighed. How are you holding up, Phil? Mark was one of my best friends. We have known each other since we were pups. He was there to help when my parents died and now he glanced at the sheet-covered body. They tore him to pieces. I took a whiff of the air and I smelled the stench of rogues around us. Melinda and Mark's maid Elizabeth were grocery shopping when Elizabeth started screaming as she felt her bond to Mark break. That's when I knew he was dead. Phil explained. I glanced around and didn't see Gemma. Gemma. I called and looked around. I looked at Ian. Did you see where your sister went? Ian shook his head. No, Gemma. I called as I looked around. My warriors were milling about with the tackers. Did you guys see where the queen went? They shook their heads as they stiffened. The stench reached my nostrils. Rogues. A lot of rogues. There were growls as dozens stepped into view. Some in wolf form and others in human form. Without hesitation they attacked us. I shifted into wolf form, shredding my suit. I began attacking the brutes as I looked around for my mate. Gemma. I shouted through the mind link only to be met with silence. Enoch. Where is she? I ripped the throat out of a rogue as I stood beside Phil's black and white wolf. We glanced at each other before ripping apart rogues. My warriors and Beta killed their share of rogues, and before long there were piles of dead rogues. I shifted back into human form and looked around. Gemma! Gemma! Her father and brother shouted. Cassius, Enoch sounded worried. She's been taken. The attack was a distraction. What? I shouted in my head. My wolf whined. I'm sorry, buddy. Where is she? Jeremy and some men took her. He flashed the image he had gotten from Leonora. Leonora says if we follow then Gemma and Nick will be killed. I fell to my knees. Gemma! I howled to the heavens. Gemma's POV. I sat in the SUV beside Cassius, trying not to completely break down into a mess of tears. Cassius had told me to be strong and think of the twins also. But I just wanted to find Nicky and have him in my arms and safe again. I leaned against Cassius's chest for comfort. He stroked my back as I watched the scenery outside the vehicle become familiar. We were close to the lake I had spent a lot of time at as a pup with my parents and siblings. The vehicle pulled into the lot close to the lake and I was out of the door before it was fully stopped. Gemma! Cassius called after me, but I ignored him and saw my father and brother. My father looked stressed. I looked past him to see a white sheet covering a body. I assumed it was Mark's. I saw blood around the sheet on the ground. I sighed. Mark had been like an uncle to me growing up, and of course, he was Nicky's grandfather. I stopped in front of my father and he pulled me into a hug. I knew he was grieving the loss of his Beta and close friend. Despite their differences, he and Mark had been like brothers. How are you holding up, Phil? I heard Cassius ask behind me. My father released me and I vaguely heard him and my mate talking. I caught a familiar scent in the air and motherly instinct drove me to follow it. I have a bad feeling about this, I said to Leonora. It's our pup. I just know it. My son's scent grew stronger the further away I got from my Cassius and my family. My gut said to turn back and go to Cassius, but instinct and my wolf were driving me in this direction. I stopped at the top of a hill out of earshot of my mate and the warriors we brought. I looked around and saw I was near a road. Nicky! I called out. Mommy! I heard his voice and turned to see him being held tightly by Jeremy. He tried to break free from his father's grasp, but Jeremy held on tight. Jeremy! Let him go! Nicky was crying as he struggled to get free from Jeremy's grasp. Let me go! He snarled to Jeremy. Jeremy pulled Nicky towards him. Stop it, Nicholas! He sighed and looked at me. Everything will be okay. Soon you will be free of that mate bond and then we'll all be together. Jeremy explained as my anger towards him rose. I heard rustling behind me and turned to see what it was, and then I felt something sharp stabbing me in my neck. The cackling of a man behind me could be heard as I felt faint and pain through my body. I started to sink to the ground as my son called to me. Jeremy stepped forward as I fell to the ground. Do not mind Link Cassius or you and Nicky will be killed. Just go to sleep and soon everything will be all right. His once handsome face became the devil as I slipped into darkness and pain. I heard Leonora growling in my head. Leonora, tell Enoch what Jeremy just said. I already did, Gemma. My wolf replied as I closed my eyes and everything went black. All I felt was searing hot pain in the darkness. I wanted to escape it and be free of it. I tried opening my eyes but I was paralyzed from the hot pain. Leonora! I called to my wolf. We've been poisoned again, Gemma. The same as last time. I have to choose between staying in contact with Enoch or saving the pups. Save the pups, Leonora. I need to have faith that Enoch and Cassius will find us. There was silence as my wolf didn't reply, but the pain lessened till I was numb. I felt my body being jostled along with my voice all around me. I heard Nikki crying. Shut up! I heard a loud growl close by. Most likely from whoever was carrying me. I wanted to wake up and claw his eyes out for yelling at my pup. Quiet down, Nick! I heard Jeremy growling and my son just whimpered. The next thing I know I was dropped like a sack of potatoes. Luckily I landed on something almost soft. I still wanted to open my eyes but it felt like they were glued shut. Mommy! My son yelped. Shut the brat up before I yank his tongue out. The voice snarled. My pup whined as I heard him yelp. Nick, shut up! Jeremy barked at him. I wanted to wake up so I could rip Jeremy's throat out. I never should have asked Cassius to spare him. What a fool I was! I lay there listening to the voices before I fell into silence again. I dreamt of my pups playing in the field of daisies with Cassius. But I couldn't get to them. The more I tried to run to them, the further away they got. I finally got to them only for everything to go black again. I called out to Cassius only for my voice to echo into the void. I felt empty as I opened my eyes. I was lying on my side facing a brick wall. I rolled onto my back and figured out I was on a bed. Not a comfortable one but a bed. I turned my head and I was in a cell of some sort. It was made of wet stone. Beside the bed, there was a small table with a chair and a dirty-smelling toilet in the corner. I tried sitting up but my head felt like it was in a vice. There was a large iron door with a small window. I heard keys jingling and then the door opened. In walked Jeremy with a grin upon his demon face. I sneered at him. He knelt beside the bed. How are you feeling, love? He reached out to stroke my cheek and I swatted him away. He tried using Cassius's term of endearment for me. What is going on, Jeremy? I snarled at him and his smile fell. Don't be like that, Gemma. I am saving you from a forced mating. When this is all over, you and I will be together. We'll take Nick far away and live a happy life. I growled at him. You are so deluded, Jeremy. He growled at my words. I will never be with you. Cassius is the only one I want. I never should have asked him to spare you. He is a far better father than you will ever be. Jeremy snarled loudly and balled up his fists. I hissed when he punched me hard in my cheek. I glared at him. Shut up, Gemma. I heard someone chuckle and looked towards the door as a man looking like Cassius stepped into the cell. He was wearing a very fine black suit and his brown hair was slicked back. He snorted at Jeremy. Oh, come now, Jeremy. Don't hit the woman. His smooth voice echoed in the cell. He then turned his dull blue eyes on me. Felix. I spat with disgust. He snapped his fingers and Jeremy pulled the chair from the meager table and set it beside Felix. He sat down and placed his hand on his knee. Are you comfortable, Your Majesty? He tried sounding sincere as Jeremy stood beside him. I know it's not the cell you saw in your dreams, but that can be arranged if you like. I just glared at him. I wanted to leap off this bed and rip both of their throats out, but I could barely move. No doubt the effects of the poison in my body. Anyways, you are probably curious about why you are here, Felix said with amusement in his voice. I have an idea, I responded to him. You are very predictable. You want the crown? He nodded. How right you are. I am the rightful king of the werewolves. The Furious were never supposed to rule, but they took it from my half of the family. When I am king, things will be restored to the way they were before the Furious usurped the crown. I snorted. Right, enslaving humans and destroying the order of things. Felix leaned back in the chair. And what is wrong with enslaving an inferior species? Humans are useless twits. They would be better off serving us. I rolled my eyes at him and looked at Jeremy. And what are you getting out of this? He glanced at Felix. Why, you, of course. He smiled at me. Having you in my arms has always been the goal. I love you, Gemma. I want us to be together like we were meant to be. I snarled at him. There is one problem with that plan, Jeremy. I don't love you. He snickered. You are only saying that because of the mate bond. Once Cassius is dead, your heart will be free to love the one it truly desires. Cassius is the one I truly desire. Jeremy growled at me. Gemma, I am doing this for us. I don't have time for this lover's spat, Felix spoke out angrily. You, my dear, will be my guest while that poison we injected kills off those royal whelps. By that time Cassius will be weakened by your absence, so I will easily take him down. Then you will be free to go with Jeremy and your pup. He stood up and walked towards the door. It shouldn't take more than a week. He walked out of the cell, leaving me with Jeremy. I scowled at the man I once loved. How could he have sunk so low that I now despised him? You may think you won me. But I will hate you forever, and the first chance I get I will kill you. Jeremy's expression darkened and he grabbed my throat. You can make this easy of hard. I would hate anything to happen to Nick. His voice hissed out and I felt chills run down my spine. You wouldn't hurt him, Jeremy. He got into my face. That entirely depends on you, Gemma. Be a good little mate and we'll be happy. Fight me and Nick will never live to his 4th birthday. He released me and I gasped for air. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. In everything that Jeremy had done, I had always defended him as a father. Despite all his failings, he always loved Nick no matter what, and here he was threatening to kill our precious pup. You would kill your own son. We can always make more. His face contorted into an evil grin. I have to go, it's almost dinner time. Be sure to eat every last bite. It has a special ingredient to speed up the poison in your system. He laughed coldly before walking out of the cell and locking it behind him. Tears fell down my cheeks. It wasn't cold, but the feeling that Jeremy left me with made me shiver. I so wanted to mind-link Cassius so he could come and save me. Leonora, you have to hold on. I told her to be met with silence. She had to use all of her strength to keep the poisons from affecting the pups. She couldn't contact Enoch or Leopold. She couldn't even talk to me. The silence was jarring. I pulled my knees to my chest and fell into an uneasy sleep, hoping and praying that Cassius would find us. All I wanted was my mate's tender touch and to be held in his safe arms. Hours later I was awakened by rough hands shaking me. I looked up to a grim-faced rogue. "Get up and eat your dinner, miss," he growled to me. He had a tray of what looked to be gruel in his hands. I could smell the poison mixed in. "I'm not hungry." A rough hand pulled me up to stand before him. He dropped the tray on the table and then forced me to sit. "Either you eat it yourself or I force you to." I stared at the nasty-looking food and my stomach turned. I wasn't sure how long Leonora could hang on if I kept eating the poison. "Moon Goddess, please, spare my pups," I prayed to her as I took a bite of the food. "This is nasty. Be grateful we are feeding you," the rogue growled. He was standing over me. "Do you have to watch me?" "Yes. The boss wants me to ensure him that you eat every last bite." Sighing heavily I steeled myself to finish the food. Perhaps once he left I could just vomit it up before it affected my body too much. I forced it down quickly and turned to the rogue. "Satisfied?" He picked up the tray and left the cell. I listened as his steps got further away, then I ran to the toilet and stuck my finger down my throat, forcing myself to vomit. I retched until my sides hurt. I wished there was water for me to rinse my mouth. Sighing, I walked over and fell onto the bed. I stared at the ceiling as I lay on my back, the taste of bile in my mouth making me queasy. I didn't know how long I would be able to hang on like this. I fell into a restless sleep, tossing and turning on the hard bed. I eventually succumbed to the darkness again and dreamed of my happy family running around in the field, only I was unable to get to them. I was in a cage looking out. They didn't seem to notice I was there as I cried out to them. Then one by one they faded as I screamed for them. Finally, Cassius was the only one left. His blue eyes looked up at me as he turned to dust and his remains blew away in the wind. "Cassius!" I cried into the silence. "Cassius, I need you to find me. I need you to rescue me and our pups. Oh please, Moon Goddess, don't let them die. Hold on, Gemma," a female voice said as the field of daisies glowed in a silvery light. "You are stronger than you know. The full moon is in 1 week. Leonora has the strength to hang on for the week and then she and the pups will die. You need to have faith that I will keep that from happening. But I will need your strength to achieve that. I have faith in you," I said to the voice I'm pretty sure was the moon goddess, Selene. She did not speak again and I was left to suffer in silence once again. I just hoped what she said was real and not a manifestation of my thoughts. I just needed faith. Gemma's POV days have passed by, or at least I think they have. There are no windows except the one on the door. So I have no idea what time it is. The only passage of time I get is when the wretched meals that I am forced to eat arrive. The nasty gruel and sometimes bread has been my only sustenance. They figured out I was vomiting it up, so they turned off the toilet. Now I have to do my business in a bucket. Leonora has all but become dormant while she uses her entire being to keep the poison from killing the twins. So, I can't feel the mate bond with Cassius. I can't mind Link or feel him. He haunts my dreams, but other than that I do not feel him. I cry endlessly at the lonely feeling of not having my mate close. All I want is his arms around me forever. My days or nights are spent lying on this filthy bed waiting for my next poisoned meal. A couple of times Jeremy has brought Nikki to visit me. I wish my pup didn't have to see me in this state. "Mommy, are you sick?" he asked me. "Yes, baby. They are putting bad stuff in my food." I told him the one time Jeremy left us alone. I couldn't help but notice the sadness on his little face, not to mention the bruises on his arms and cheeks. "Did Daddy do this?" I asked. He said I was a bad pup. He sniffled and looked away from me. His blue eyes were sullen. "I miss Daddy." "Daddy is just outside the door," I told him. He leaned against me. "He is not my daddy. Not anymore. He hurts me. Daddies aren't supposed to hurt their pups." He started to cry and my heart broke for my pup. I sighed and consoled my pup as the door opened and Jeremy walked in. "Ready to go, buddy?" he said to Nikki as my pup shrank into my side. "I want to stay with Mommy," he said to Jeremy. Jeremy rushed forward and roughly grabbed Nikki from my side. I said it's time to go. His voice growled out and Nikki whimpered. "Quit hurting him." I snarled at Jeremy. Jeremy softened a bit. "I'm not hurting him. It's called discipline, Gemma. He needs to mind me. This will all be over soon," he said as he dragged my crying pup from the cell. Tears fell down my cheeks. All of my pups were in distress and I was stuck lying in bed unable to do anything. I sobbed into the dirty pillow as the door opened again. Hero dropped my food on the table. "Time to eat up, miss," he snarled. "I'm not hungry," I mumbled, still lying face down on the bed. I hissed when his big hand grabbed me by my hair and pulled me to my feet. He slammed me into the seat and pointed at the food. "Eat." I glared at him as I sneered at the slop in front of me. The poison wafted up to my nose. They had put in more than usual. I had to keep from retching as I forced the food down my throat. When it was gone, the guard picked up the tray. "Now, remember, no vomiting or the pup gets it," I growled lowly as he walked out and slammed the door shut. I sat on the bed and just stared into the nothing. I was beginning to lose hope. The goddess had told me to have faith. But that faith was waning. I fell into a restless sleep only to be awoken by the Herogue. He grabbed me roughly by my arms. "Boss wants you to see the doc." He pulled me to my feet and slapped restraints on my wrists. He then pulled me out of the cell. I took note of my surroundings. I was in a dungeon of some sort. Most likely underground, as most were. It was dirty and mold-filled. He dragged me down, stopping at a door that said infirmary. It was a small room with an exam table and rudimentary medical equipment. A man in a white doctor's robe stood in the corner and beside him was Felix. "Have a seat, miss." The doctor beckoned to the table. I shook my head defiantly. Felix rolled his eyes and snapped his fingers. The rogue grabbed my hair and dragged me towards the exam table. He then picked me up and slammed me onto it. I shuddered at the pain in my hips and leg. I glared darkly at him as the doctor stood beside me. "Lie down," he said to me. I snarled at the doctor and complied because I didn't want Leonora to have more work to heal my injuries. The doctor lifted my dirty torn shirt and began to press on my belly. I winced at the pain of his rough hands. He walked out of the room briefly and then rolled in a crude sonogram machine. He turned it on and squirted the jelly on my belly. I sighed and glanced at the screen. He sighed heavily and looked at Felix. "I still see the pups, sir," he mumbled. A loud growl rumbled out of Felix and he grabbed the rogue's neck. "Are you making sure she eats all of her food?" he roared. The rogue trembled. "Yes, sir. I do as you told me to. I stand and watch her eat every bite. We even unhooked the toilet to make sure she isn't throwing it up." Felix threw him to the floor and turned his anger to me. "How are those wretched pups still alive then?" "I have a strong wolf," I told him. He punched the doctor. "Take those pups out the human way then if the poison isn't working." The doctor held his cheek. "Sir, I am not a surgeon. I do not know how to do that procedure." Felix punched him again. "Then find someone who can. In the meantime triple the poison. I want those pups dead and if it kills him in the process," he roared and smirked at me. "Just get it down, you incompetent stupid." He then stormed out of the room. The rogue pulled me up from the exam table and dragged me back to my cell. He took off the shackles and slammed the door behind him. I crumpled to the bed. I placed my hand on my belly hoping to feel my pups and I felt them ever so faintly and it broke me. I sensed their lives slowly losing the fight. "Leonora, if you can hear me. Know I love you," I said to my wolf. There was no response in my head. I rolled onto my side and curled into a ball as tears fell down my cheeks. My eyes closed and I fell into another restless sleep. Once again I dreamt of being in the field of daisies with my mate and children. Cassius stood proudly watching over them. My handsome mate looked lovingly at the pups. He couldn't be happier, prouder of our brood. He looked up at me. I reached out to touch him only for him and the pups to turn to dust, leaving me alone in the field. I felt her presence again. "Do not lose hope, child." "I'm trying," I replied sadly, looking into the starless sky. "One more day." Her voice echoed as I was shaken awake again. I looked into the face of Jeremy. He smiled slightly at me. "You look cute when you first wake up." I balled up my fist and punched him in the nose. He snarled and stepped back as I sat up. "What do you want?" I glared at him. "I just came to see my mate." He held his bleeding. "I am not your mate, Jeremy." He sat on the chair. "You are my chosen mate. Remember? Remember when we became chosen mates? I knelt in front of you proclaiming my love and you said yes. I remembered that day well. I had just found out I was pregnant with Nikki. Jeremy wanted to take responsibility for our pup, so he told my father I would be his chosen mate. I remember, Jeremy. I also remember the day you came from the mating ball announcing you had found your mate. How happy you were." He frowned at me. "It was my father's doing, Gemma. He made me accept Esther." I rolled my eyes at him. "Yes, I know. Everything was your father's fault. You had no control. Gemma, I still loved you. I have always loved you." I sighed. And I love Cassius. He growled at me. You are mine whether you want to be or not. He then stormed out of the cell. Days later I was laying in bed when I started to feel pain from my last meal. I can't hang on much longer, Gemma. Leonora's voice nearly whispered in my head. I am dying. She cried. And when I die so will the pups. Tears welled up in my eyes. You have to hang on, Leonora. The goddess told me we have to hang on. I pleaded with her as I was once again left in silence. Can you try to mind link Enoch or Leopold? Just once. I will try. Just once. She replied with a hint of hope. The door of the cell slammed open and Felix walked in with a different man in doctor's robes. Okay honey, here is the deal. Either you tell your wolf to stop protecting the pups and let the poison do its thing, or I have my friend cut those pups out of you. Felix's voice hissed out. I nearly gasped when he mentioned my wolf. How did I know? He laughed. You know I employ witches, right? They know these things. My friend told me your white wolf could use all of her strength to prevent almost any poison from affecting the pups. He explained. So, tomorrow they better be dead by poison, or like I said he will cut them out of you. And I might add we don't have anesthesia here. He cackled as they walked out of the room. I lay in the bed in shock. My heart thumped against my chest. I need Cassius. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I sobbed into the pillow. I am having a hard time with faith, I called out to the goddess. Hold tight, Gemma. She replied. You and your pups are very important to me. Nothing will happen to them. I am sending you help. I sighed as I felt warmth spread through my body. I felt strength returning and I rose from the bed. What is happening? I am happening. A strange female voice came through my mind. My name is Aurora. I am your daughter's wolf. The goddess has awakened me and my twin from our dormant states to get you out of this cell and reunited with father. What? Mother, I am Xerxes. I am your son's wolf. A male voice said in my head. They both sounded young but full of life. How are you going to help me? We will combine our strength to help you fight your way out of the cell and the dungeon you are being held in, while Mother Leonora keeps our human counterparts safe. Aurora explained to me. I will be contacting Father Enoch so he can lead Father here to us. Xerxes piped in. Just hold on till tomorrow when the full moon is at its brightest. Felix wants you both dead by poison or cut out of me tomorrow. I told them. The goddess will make sure that doesn't happen. Have faith in her, mother. We have faith in you, Aurora's calm voice soothed me. I have faith in both of you. I love you both so much already. I said out loud. The goddess told us we were lucky to have you as a mother. I laughed. Wait till you meet your father. We must rest now to build our strength for tomorrow, Xerxes sighed. We will let you know when it's time. Okay. I replied to him. Be safe, my little ones, and rest tight. I told them as I was once again left in silence. Cassius's POV. It's been a week since my heart was taken from me. The longest, darkest week of my life. The first couple of days we searched for them. The trails all ran cold in a million directions. The longer it went with no sign, the more despair I felt. The worst part was I could no longer feel our bond. Enoch whined constantly in my head because he could not contact or feel his mate or our pups. I tried to get through each day. I would run for hours in the woods near where she was taken, trying to find some sign of hope. Something I could use to find her. But it was like hope was constantly running from me. I became too distraught to do my job, and when I wasn't searching I was sitting in my room staring at the empty spot on our bed. I couldn't bring myself to sleep in the bed without her, so I just sat up all night. My father and Beta have taken over running the kingdom because I am in no condition to do so. It's been almost a week and there is talk of me finding a replacement. Each time the suggestion has been met with furniture-breaking anger. I will die before I replace my heart. I roared, shaking the walls. None of them were being reasonable. They wanted to give up searching for my queen because the trail went cold. There were rumors she left me for Jeremy. Which was nonsense. The only one still adamant about searching with me was Ian, Gemma's twin. He was lost without his twin. His wolf Leopold was almost as frantic as Enoch to find her. Day 6 came and my parents insisted I sit in the dining room to eat breakfast. It had been days since I touched food. I just stared blankly at the food in front of me, trying my best not to look at the empty chair on my right. Everyone around me was trying to talk to me, but I just stared. I was broken without her. I felt like I couldn't go on with life. She was my everything, and without her, there was nothing to live for. I stood up from the table and walked out of the dining room to the protests of my parents and friends. I ran into Ian in the hall. He looked as worn out and tired as I was. The bond of twins was almost stronger than that of mates. The absence of his twin was as bad for him as it was for me. I have had no luck, he mumbled sadly as I just wandered through the hall with no direction. My dad's trackers are exhausted and he pulled them back. I can't believe he is giving up on her. I sensed Ian's despair. We will never give up, Ian. I looked into his sullen green eyes. He looked as bad as I looked. Bags under his eyes from not sleeping. The overgrown stubble on his face. The stench of not bothering to shower daily. We walked silently outside the palace, stopping at the trilene. I'm going for a run, I said to my brother-in-law. I started to take off my clothes and noticed he was doing the same. So am I. We finished taking off our clothes and shifted into our wolves. They were both black and large. Mine was slightly larger, being a king. He has silver streaks in his fur. I glanced at him and ran into the woods towards the lake she was taken from. Ian's wolf followed close behind. Enoch stirred in my head as we reached the lake. Do you detect anything, buddy? I asked my wolf. He had become distant the last few days as the mate bond faded. He knew she wasn't dead, but she might as well have been. I thought I did. He whined sadly. I sat down on my haunches beside the lake. Ian sat beside me. Leopold thought he detected something. His voice said in my head. He's been very withdrawn lately. So has Enoch. He can't feel our bond anymore. I stared at the lake. Leopold says he knows his twin is alive because he can feel her breathing. But for some reason, she cannot respond. He despaired. Sighing, I took off into the woods again. Running in all directions, trying desperately to catch her scent on the wind. trying to catch something that would lead me in her direction. Hour of trying and howling in desperation, I decided to run back to the palace with Ian close behind me. Nothing. She is just gone without a trace. We reached the edge of the trees and shifted into human form. I pulled on a pair of boxers from the pile. Ian and I entered the palace silently and my beta ran towards me. Cassius, where have you been? Deke demanded as he stood in front of me looking distressed. I growled lowly. Where do you think I have been? I have been searching for my mate. Since everyone else gave up. I snarled loudly, causing my best friend to flinch. Well, we have been trying to contact you. Felix is here with some of the elders demanding you either find another she-wolf to impregnate or step down. I growled so loud the walls shook. Where is he? I hissed through gritted teeth. In the office with your father, Deke replied. I ran towards the office. Enoch growled in my head. Felix had something to do with Gemma disappearing. He rumbled. My father was outside of the office with my mother and a few elders and Felix. I nearly flew into a rage seeing my cousin but had to restrain myself. Ah, Cassius! My father said to me with a hint of anger. I just flashed a glance at him before seething a hole of hatred through Felix's head. King Cassius, the elders, and I were just discussing your situation. My cousin said to me. We believe you need to move on from the Queen and find a suitable replacement. He said as I growled. That is not happening, I said through my teeth while glaring at my cousin. An elder stepped forward. A man with black hair. Elder Yates. Your Majesty, you are running out of time to present an heir before your birthday. I have 2 heirs, I mentioned to him. And as far as we know they are dead along with their mother. I balled up my fists. Gemma is not dead. I roared at him. He flinched back and I felt a hand on my shoulder. I knew it was my father. There has been no trace of her. The elder said to me. And there have been rumors that she ran off with the father of her illegitimate pup. I pulled away from my father's grip. She did not leave me. She was taken from me. I growled at the elder. Cassius, you need to calm down. My father said beside me. My sister is alive. Ian chimed in. If she wasn't I would feel it. The elder held up his hand. I realize she may be alive but she isn't here. You still need an heir. I stepped dangerously close to the elder. My mate, your queen is alive. Our pups are alive. And I will not give up until I find them. Felix snorted and brushed his suit. Enoch growled in my head when he caught a familiar scent. I swear I saw a glint of a smirk on my cousin, but it was enough for me to fly into a rage, and the next thing I knew I had him by the throat pinned to a wall. Where is she? I roared. Cassius! My father yelled at me. Tell me. Where she is? Felix squirmed in my hold. I have no idea what you are talking about. He tried using his innocent face. Why do I smell her on you? He sighed and looked past me as I felt hands on me trying to get me to release my cousin. Cassius, son. You need to release Felix. My father tried using his calm but stern tone. He has Gemma. I smell her on him. I pleaded with my father as I tightened my grip on Felix's throat. I don't have your mate, he gasped out. You must smell my mate. No, that is Gemma's scent I smell. Enoch smells it, I said as I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I was desperate that any feminine scent must be Gemma. I dropped Felix and he fell into a heap at my feet as I turned away from them. I had to hide the tears. Son, it's time to let her go. The trails are all cold. My father said in my ear. It's only been a week, I growled at him. I am never giving up. He sighed. Son, you have to think about the kingdom. We can't lose the crown. I know you love Gemma. But she is gone. She is not gone. I roared in my father's face. He stood stoically and pursed his lips. I am not giving up hope of finding her. Not until I know for sure she is dead. But she is not dead. I would have felt it if she was. There has to be a reason, Enoch, and I cannot feel her. I thought I heard snickering and looked towards my cousin. He kept smirking at me when everyone else's eyes were turned away. I shook with rage as my father was saying something to me. I ignored him. The elders and my father had walked into my office. Felix sauntered towards me. He leaned into me. You will never find her, he whispered. Again I saw red as I tackled Felix and punched him repeatedly as I growled. Tell me where she is. His face became as I growled and punched him. I know you are involved. I felt arms pulling me off of Felix and I struggled to get free. I know it was my father pulling me away from my cousin laying on the ground. Cassius, you need to stop. My father shouted over my frantic growls. I felt Enoch trying to push forward for control. He knows where Gemma is. I broke free from my father and ran to Felix, who was sitting up. I began to pummel him again. Tell me where she is. I cried in frustration. Guards! My father bellowed. More hands grabbed me and were trying to pull me away from my cousin, who was now only half conscious on the ground. Let me go! I roared at them. That bastard knows where Gemma is. I repeated as a dozen guards and my father had to fight to restrain me. Deke, I need a sedative now. My father ordered my beta. Other guards were putting my cousin on a stretcher. He didn't deserve medical attention. Tell me where Gemma is. I shouted to Felix. I managed to break free from the hold of the guards and ran towards Felix, but was stopped by more guards. It took another 6 to keep me from running to the stretcher. My father stepped in and pushed me into a wall. His eyes looked sad as he looked into mine. I'm sorry, my son. He spoke out sadly as I kept struggling to free myself from his and the guard's hold on me. I then felt a sharp prick in my neck and I felt my body go numb as the fight slowly waned in me, and then I fell to my knees. I heard my father giving orders to the guards as I passed out. I dreamt of her again. Playing in a field of daisies with our pups. The twins frolicked with their older brother Nick. Gemma looked so serene as our pups danced around her. I stood proudly watching them all, but I could not get to them. I was trapped. Then everything went black again and I was alone. I knew I was in my bed when I woke up. Her scent still lingering all around me as tears fell out of my eyes. I did not hold back as I sobbed like a baby into my pillow. I felt a hand on my shoulder and knew it was my mother. Oh, my boy! she said quietly as I broke apart. She isn't gone, Mom, I mumbled into the pillow. She isn't gone. She just sighed and lightly stroked my shoulder. Don't ever give up on hope, Cassie. Her voice calmed me like it always has. Your heart and soul would know if she was truly gone. I rolled my head to look up at her. My eyes burned through the tears. I can't feel her, but I know she isn't dead. Enoch can't feel Leonora, but he knows she is alive. Why doesn't anyone believe me? Why has everyone given up? She licked her lips. They are only thinking of the future of the kingdom. They aren't connected heart and soul to her like you are. I can't give up, Mom. No matter what. I will not give up. I know, baby. She placed her hand on my cheek. My face fell into the pillow and I closed my eyes and disappeared into the darkness again. I never felt more alone than I did now. Was I hanging on to hopelessness? Was she gone? My heart screamed no, she wasn't gone. But I couldn't feel our bond. I couldn't feel her. Still, I refused to give up hope. I prayed to the moon goddess for guidance. I have faith you will not give up on her. A serene female voice said in my head. She is alive. Barely hanging on. Moon goddess. I replied to the voice I had heard before. Yes, my child. I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Normally, I don't intervene in the lives of my children, but Gemma, your pups, and you are too important to the future of this world. I felt I needed to step in. The reason you and Enoch cannot feel Gemma or Leonora is because Leonora is using all of her strength to keep the pups alive. Gemma is being fed the same poison as before to kill the pups. Leonora can't risk using any strength to mind link. But her strength is waning. I am sending help to both you and Gemma to help her break free and return home. I rose in my bed. My mother was still sitting beside the bed. I ignored her wide-eyed look. When are you sending help? Have faith in me, Cassius. She responded. When are you sending help? I said as I felt her presence leave me. When? I shouted through my mind to be met with silence. I stood up and clenched my fists. When? I shouted out loud. Tell me. Desperation was setting in. I fell to my knees and buried my head in my hands. I need my Gemma. I sobbed heavily and felt my mother's hands on my back. I tried waving her off, but she wouldn't leave me. I feel like giving up. Don't give up, Father, a strange male was in my head. Who are you? I am Xerxes, your son's wolf. The goddess woke me and my twin up from our dormant state to help you and mother. He responded. Enoch. He tells the truth, Cassius. Enoch responded. Father, Aurora is helping Mother gain strength to escape her cell while Mother Leonora keeps our human forms safe from the poison. Tonight when the moon is at its fullest we will work together to free her and get her back to you. He explained. I felt new strength coursing through my veins as I stood up. I heard growls and shouts outside of my bedroom as the door slammed open, revealing Ian with my guards trying to pull him out. Leave him, I ordered them and they backed off. Ian's green eyes were wide. Leopold felt Leonora. He knows where she is. Follow my guidance, Father, and I will lead you to Mother. Xerxes said in my head. My son's wolf is talking in my head, I said to Ian and my mother. He said he can lead us to her. Your son's wolf? My mother asked. I nodded. The goddess told me she was sending help and then my son's wolf started talking to me. My mother's mouth fell open. I thought you were glowing for a second there. And you are sure it is your son's wolf? I nodded. Enoch confirmed it. His name is Xerxes. I told her. I started walking towards the door. Cassius. My mother called me. Where are you going? I looked back at her. I am going to go get my family back. Are you coming? I said to Ian. He nodded. I am with you all the way. I called my father already. He is on his way also with warriors. Good, I replied to him. Have them meet us at the lake. Xerxes chimed in. Have you father and his warriors meet us at the lake in an hour, I told Ian as he pulled out his phone. I then linked some of my warriors to meet us at the lake too. I then walked out of the palace with Ian close behind. My father was at the trilene. Do you need help, son? He smirked at me. How did you know? He snorted. Your mother, of course. She said your son's wolf is talking to you. I nodded. He said he can lead me to Gemma. Then I am behind you 100%. He started to strip out of his clothes. You believe me? Of course. He stuffs our clothes into a backpack and shifted into his wolf. He had dark, almost black fur. Ian's wolf stood beside him as I shifted. We then sprinted into the woods as I allowed Xerxes and Enoch to guide me towards Gemma. Jeremy's POV. I was growing frustrated with everything. Frustrated I was forced to stay in this compound with smelly rogues. Frustrated that Gemma refused to see the light and admit her love for me. Frustrated that my son no longer saw me as his father. It pained me to raise a hand to him, but he needed to see the light. I am his father, not the king. Felix was getting more agitated the longer the pups in Gemma's womb lived. I just wanted this all to be over so I could take my mate and son and lived peacefully. I looked into the fearful eyes of my son as I had slapped him again for being a brat towards one of the guards. He was screaming about wanting to go home or see his mother. I had just taken him to see Gemma yesterday. All he did was cry since then. It was pissing me off. He whimpered as I slapped his face again. You need to behave, Nicholas. His blue eyes looking at me with fear nearly broke me, but I wasn't going to give in. I hate you. He cried at me as he curled up on the crude bed he was sitting on. I growled out my frustration and walked out of the room. Felix stormed past me. His face was swollen and bruised. He walked with pain, it seemed. I walked after him. So, what happened to you? He turned to me with a glare. My cousin lost his temper. And you lived. He shrugged and looked towards his witch who was walking towards us. The beautiful raven-haired woman snuck a smirk at me. Felicia here sped up my recovery. I wanted to be here when the doctor arrived. I nodded as he walked away. The witch walked closer to me. Your pretty little girlfriend is probably going to die tonight. I narrowed my eyes at her. What? He is ordering a doctor to cut those pups out of her. And we don't exactly have a sterile environment in which to do so. I growled. That wasn't part of the deal. She is supposed to live so she can be with me. Felicia shrugged. Like Felix cares about that. He just wants the crown and he'll use anyone to achieve that. You are just a pawn. My fists clenched and I stormed towards Gemma's cell. I hadn't seen her since yesterday. The guard opened the door for me and I gasped at what I saw. She had been getting weaker by the day, but today she looked healthy and peppy. She looked up at me and her violet eyes practically glowed. "What do you want?" she growled out. "What happened to you?" I asked her with my air of confusion. She snickered. "I am a white wolf, Jeremy. We handle things better than cowardly former betas." I let out a frustrated sigh. "Gemma, Felix has a doctor here that intends to cut those pups out." Her finger gripped the bed. "That isn't going to happen." She glared at me. "Gemma, just let them die. We can have more pups when we are free." A fierce growl ripped out of her. "I will never let my children just die. And there is or ever will be a we, Jeremy. Get it through your thick skull. I feel nothing for you. I should have let Cassius and my father rip you to shreds when they had the chance." I snarled at her. "Fine, then sit here and die. See if I care. But I am taking Nick." She just glared at me with a slight smirk that sort of scared me. I growled and walked out of the cell. I went to the room where my son was. He was playing with a dirty teddy bear a rogue had given him. He glanced at me but didn't say anything. I felt guilty about the hand-shaped bruise on his face. He crawled away from me when I sat close to him. "I'm not going to hit you," I said gently to him. He whined but remained silent, just concentrating on the bear. "Nick, look at me," I said to him. He ignored me. "Nicholas. I am your father." I said, "Look at me." His blue eyes looked up at me. "Look, I am sorry I hit you and yelled at you. But I am under a lot of stress and you aren't helping. When this is all over, Mommy, you and I will be happy." "Mommy hates you," he mumbled quietly. "No, she doesn't. She is stressed too. She isn't thinking straight. We will be out of here soon." He glared at me. "You are going to die." My eyes narrowed at him. He kept saying that to me. "Do you want me to die, Nicholas? Is that what you want?" He shrugged and said nothing. I grabbed his chin and growled. "You want your own father to die?" I shouted at him as he whimpered. I snatched the teddy bear from his hands and threw it to the other side of the room. "What kind of pup wants his father to die?" He pulled away from me and I grabbed him by the shoulder. I glared into his fearful face. I raised a hand and smacked his cheek. He began to cry. "Quit crying, Nicholas. No son of mine is going to be a whiny. I am not your son." I grabbed the collar of his shirt. "I don't need a sniveling baby like you as a son anyways." I pushed him to the ground and walked out of the cell to his crying. I leaned against the wall for a moment. "You are a disgrace," Rex growled in my head. "Harming my pup like that." "Shut up, Rex. You are just a parasite. What do you know about real love? What do you know?" he retorted before retreating into my mind. I stormed through the compound to the shared kitchen. A few rogues were eating as I rummaged through the cabinets looking for booze. I finally found a bottle of cheap rum. I tore off the cap and sucked it down. I sat in a seat near the rogues as they chattered. One of them was Gemma's main guard. The one that brought her food and watched her eat. That queen is dying tonight. He laughed at his friend. I growled and he rolled his eyes. What are you growling about? She isn't going to die. The guard shrugged. What does it matter? She doesn't want you anyways. I hear your conversations. She will come around. She loved me once. He snorted. Oh right. Just because she let you knock her up once doesn't mean she loves you. I stood up and stormed out of the room to his and the other rogues' laughter. I found Felix sitting behind the desk he used when here. He was reading a newspaper. I slammed my hands down on the desk and he looked up with annoyance. What? I can't let you kill Gemma. I snarled at him. The deal was I helped you kidnap her. Not kill her. He sniffled and kept his eyes on the newspaper. It wasn't my intention to kill her, but I need those pups dead. The poison isn't working, so I need to have them cut out. It's not my fault these filthy rogues lack an adequate facility to do so cleanly. She may not die, but it's not a guarantee. I can't risk my cousin finding us if I move her. If she dies, I'll pay you to make up for it so you can take care of your whelp. I growled at him. If she dies, I will rip your throat out. Felix snapped his fingers and the next thing I knew I was being thrown across the room. I slammed into a wall and landed on the ground in a heap. My head spun as I sat up. Felix was still just looking at his newspaper. Care to threaten me again? He looked up for a second. The rogue who threw me stood beside the desk as I got to my feet and slumped away to my room. I fell onto my bed. I couldn't think of Gemma being dead. This is your fault. Rex snarled. Get out, I growled at him. I needed to get Gemma out of here before Felix could execute his plan. But I had no money. Nowhere to go. My father was dead, so he couldn't help anymore. I sighed as my eyes closed and I fell into a restless sleep. I don't know how long I slept when I woke up again. I walked out of my room and saw the doctor had arrived. He was hauling in equipment and none of it looked safe. I gulped as I saw the dirty, rusty tools being set up in a makeshift room. There wasn't even adequate lighting in here. My heart thundered in my chest. If you were any kind of man, you would free her and my pup and let them go. Rex snarled. I will never let her go. I replied angrily to him. Then you aren't any kind of man. She may not be my fated mate, but I have always had affection for Gemma and Leonora. At least show my pup the way to do things right. I might die and then what? I argued with him. He sighed. Then you may wind up in the afterlife with Goddess rather than burning in hell. Oh, thanks. He growled and retreated. I took a deep breath. It was dark outside and I saw the moon growing in brightness. Okay, Rex. I'll get her and Nick out. I'll help. I felt his strength surge through me. It was the first time we had worked together in a long time. I walked towards Gemma's cell and swore I heard feral growling coming from within as bright light streamed out of the small window. Then the door blew off its hinges and I was met with Gemma, only it wasn't Gemma. She was in half-wolf form. White fur on her arms and her face elongated. claws instead of fingers. She spots me with glowing violet eyes and snarled. Chills swept through my body as she stalked towards me. 3 rogues rushed past me to confront her, and in a blink of an eye she had ripped out their throats. Her clawed hand dripped with blood as she set her sights on me. I backed away as she approached. Her arm swung and slashed me across the face. I was against a wall as she raised her arm again. I held up my hands. Wait! I shouted to her. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.